Hello and welcome to the first in a new series of the Road to CX Vision 2035. CX Vision is a new event coming to Wembley on November 5th this year, and it's where we look at the next 10 years of customer experience, how it's going to evolve, what kind of investments people need to make in people, in technology and in strategy to really set themselves up for the next 10 years or so. I'm delighted to be welcoming Nienke Bloem from CX Leadership. How are you doing, Nienke?
I'm doing really, really well. Thank you so much for inviting me and for the event. Many people know me as the host of the International CX Awards, and I'm really, really grateful that I get the opportunity to share my future vision on our profession. And then I'm not just mentioning CX management, but we're talking about CX leadership. So I'm honored for the conversation and especially joining you and many of other people in Wembley in November. So yeah.
Yeah, well, we're delighted to have you, and I'm sure everyone else will be delighted to have you as part of this conversation as well. Nienke, you're doing actually a few things for us on the day. We'll talk about both of those. First of all, your session on stage, which is really around helping CX managers step up into those CX leadership positions. And there's a bit of a gap there, and I think you're going to be talking about some of the nuances around that gap and why this is happening. But of course, you're doing your second session is more of a masterclass. It's a 2-hour kind of in-depth session where you help those leaders actually actively make that transition into those more sort of senior CX leadership roles. We're very excited about both of these. But let's maybe start with your speaking session first of all. Maybe tell us a little bit more about that. What are you going to be doing there?
Well, I think I want to introduce people to a lot of people know the CX management, and we know the CXPA and the 5 pillars of the framework, and there's also a lot of other visions on that. But I really want to focus on the professional that has to run these transformations. That is the CX lead or the CX expert. And I want to take them along in what I've discovered in the last 6 years that all the CX leaders I've worked with. I've created a CX growth model so they can, I think it's fun. Everybody can, that's in the audience, can determine where am I somewhere on the scale from 1 to 5, being a CX beginner to being a strategic CX leader. And also I'm going to introduce to them the ANI leadership model about how do you grow and how do you become a true authoritative that leads with a good narrative and with all these instruments that you as a CX leader need to have when you want to become a strategic CX leader in your toolbox. And then how do you create that impact? And that ANI model, authority, narrative, impact, I'm going to introduce it to them just to have some ideas and to challenge people a little bit. Oh, do I feel like an authority? Am I seen as a CX authority? How do I see myself? And of course, what I really like is that I have 2 CX leaders and 1 C-suite manager on stage, where I have some conversations on how they have grown on the growth model, what they've done, what helped them, and I think to have a reality check, because theory is one, and we can all read a book or look up a webinar. But I think it's really great in the keynote in combination with some real leaders. I'm a real leader too, but I've led my last CX program that I was responsible for in 2015. So that's 11 years ago. So of all the people that I've helped, 2 of them of the CX leaders will be on stage, and the director of Eneco from the B2C, and she's director of the whole energy company. So I think it's really great that we have the CX leader and the C-suite, and we have that Irene van Hoorn and Sandra van Maarseveen, and we have the pension fund leader. So the half hour will be thought-provoking, a little bit more like, ooh, how do I see myself as a leader, and some proof on stage. So I think that's, yeah.
Excellent. Well, you actually answered part of my next question as well.
Oh, yeah. Well, sorry about that.
I'll move on. I do want to just quickly double click on that gap that you identify.
Yeah.
That gap between manager and CX leader, and a little bit more around what does that actually look like? How big is that gap, and what kind of problems is it causing organizations?
Well, I think it's very interesting because I love that you say, what is it causing organizations? What we see a lot is that a lot of CX leaders, they struggle with imposter syndrome. So because we're hired, whether you're a consultant or whether you're a practitioner, it doesn't really matter, we're hired to make that change. but we're needed to make the change. It doesn't mean that everybody's there welcoming you with open arms. No, there's often a lot of struggle. I had this terminology that I used when I was CX leader. I feel like the lonely nut knitting it all together, which sometimes you feel like that. And I do think that is the gap. How do you grow to be a true authority? So between CX manager and project manager and leader, this is where you be invited or invite yourself to the strategic table, where you grow like more like a future-based strategy. So you really strategize CX. You are very conscious about scoping. So where do I put my efforts in the organization and where don't I?
Yeah.
You much more go with the C-suite into those conversations where you don't have to fight, but you are much more a strategic partner. And I do think that is where, if you want to be a true impact, that is where you need to be. And it can be a catch-22. So I do think if you grow as an authority and put the right instruments in your narrative toolbox in, this is how you take those steps. So this is often where people feel they're not seen. They feel insignificant. They ask for budget or don't get it. And it's less asking, much more implying. And there's all these kinds of little tweaks. But in the end, the business impact is that you create more impact on the bottom line, or whether it's NPS or CSAT or customer effort score, I don't know what you're measuring, but that you truly bring that needle forward and that you bring in EBITDA or decrease churn or what the important metrics in your organization are. And you need to prove that, and that's the impact I'm talking about. So I do think the gap is still big about those that are waiting for permission and those that are really leaning forward.
It's really important, actually. I mean, a lot of this is untrodden ground for not just the business but for individuals as well. So
Yeah.
to having that sort of active pathway to making that transition is super important. And of
Yeah.
course, the other part of your session is your masterclass, a slightly more in-depth session. Take us through. What is that about? What are people going to get out of that?
Yeah, when you ask me, like, of course, this keynote is a half hour and it's more thought provoking. In the 2 hour, what we're going to do is where everybody's going to rank themselves and to do like a scan. Where do I sit on the growth scale? But also when we look at the Arnie model, how do I perceive myself, and maybe how others perceive me? What kind of instruments do I really have, and do I already use? Or maybe I'm not doing it at all. It's more like it's happening. I'm like many CX managers are working really hard, but not maybe doing or delivering the results. So we're really doing a scan, and I'm going to take them a little bit more along all these instruments in narrative, so people get an idea what they can be. Because I think it's this, yeah. When you look at travel, it's like a place you've never been to. You come into this role, and suddenly you have to deliver strategy. You have to bring big, hairy, audacious goals. What are they? You have to all these scoping elements or your change management. And I think that is the interesting. So in the 2 hour masterclass, you're going to do a scan. We're gonna go a little bit more in depth on all the elements on narrative, so all the instruments that are there. And I think it will also be like, what are the questions of the people and how can we make that practical? So I want to make it a really interactive session. And I want everybody to go away like, and where do I need to work on? Do I need to work on authority, narrative, or impact? Where do I start? So everybody's going to make this little plan. How do I grow in my leadership? And what do I need to do for that? So, and that's also why it's not going to be for so many people, because we want to make it practical and want to help people in their growth towards CX leadership.
That is a very good point. These are being held in the executive boxes at Wembley,
Yeah.
overlooking the pitch. Unfortunately, we can only get, I think it's 25 people in the room.
Ooh.
So it is first come, first served. But Nienke, to help people kind of decide if this is the session that they want to be in, who should really come to that session? Who should be in the room, and maybe who shouldn't be in that room?
I think we should be in the room are CX leaders or maybe managers and leaders that think like, ooh, I want to lead more strategically, that really want to take that next step, who want to be more self-confident in how they want to lead. CX managers who are very frustrated that they don't have strategic influence. I want them in the room because that's where we're going to focus on a lot. Who want to shape people that are like I want to share, really grow in my authority. I think that, and professionals who are just done and fed up with waiting to be seen, um, and that are ready to do the work. It's not for beginners. Let's be honest. Don't go into that room when you've just done a couple of projects. Those are just looking for give me a set of PowerPoint slides. I really want them to see themselves when I look on the growth model already. Well, I'm a couple of years in CX. I either lead a team, I have a large project, I have a transformation going on. And just people that are just, oh, I'm looking for inspiration, but don't want to take the action. Please don't come. Yeah, yeah,
Fantastic.
yeah. And also people that are a little bit too sensitive. I'm pretty honest. And we're really talking about how do you grow, and that sometimes there is some honesty, and also I'm Dutch, so I cannot help that really. So I can be truly honest, and so if you are very soft-hearted, I don't know how to really say that, but then don't come to.
Come with an open mind, I think.
Come with a
Nienke,
growth mindset, with your CX open mind. Those that want to grow in leadership. If you want that, and we're not talking about CX management, we're talking about leadership. How do you take your position? And if you're like, whoa, that's me, please come to that room. Of course, first come to CX Vision because there's so much more for you to get at the event. And come to the keynote, of course. And I don't know how the whole registration for that box and that workshop is going to be, but people will find out on the day when they're there, right?
absolutely. So there will be some registration forms going up actually online shortly, and you can find that at cxm.world/cxvision. So go to the website, you'll see that fairly clearly in the next few days or so. And yeah, get yourself signed up, and we'll approve you, and yeah, go along and become the next CX leader in our space. Nienke, that was a really great sort of overview of what you're doing at the show. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm really looking forward to hopefully catching some of those sessions on November 5th.
Thank you, and thank everybody. I think this is the place where you have to be. I look forward to meeting everybody in November in Wembley, and let's spice up our leadership. I think if we do that, we will have more impact, more confidence, and more fun. So,
Thanks very much. Take care, everyone.